You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for our recap of day 2 of the second Ashes Test. I wanted to say third Ashes Test there for some reason. It felt like a long day. Maybe that's why I felt like it was the third Ashes Test. It isn't. It is day 2. And it's England's day. It's England's day in a big way, I reckon. Although maybe it could have been England's day even more than it was. I'm Jack Hope and I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe Brown?
Hello. Yeah, I'm very, very well. I'm much happier than I was yesterday after that day of cricket. It's all gone. Well, I'm not going to say it's all gone according to plan, but it was a hell of a lot better than it may have been. So I'm positive.
You're positive. On a scale of, let's do this early. On a scale of 1 to 10, how positive are you?
8.
8. Wow. How
Yeah.
positive were you at the end of yesterday with your England hat on here, not your Antipodean hat?
2, maybe 3.
2, maybe 3. That's not. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's
It's
a huge.
It's a big swing.
It's
a big swing.
a pretty awesome change around, to be honest. So, like that. That is not a normal day cricket that we've watched. Max, before we get going, we're going to tip the hat to the sponsor, the men with the money. Serious Cricket. One more time. Can you tell us a little bit about Serious Cricket?
Absolutely. Serious Cricket, UK-based cricket equipment provider, and you can get 10% off if you go over to their website, seriouscricket.co.uk, and type in the code TCP23. They indulge in serious cricket, not England cricket, serious cricket.
Somebody has asked where Ross is, absconding, gringo.
Yep.
Ross, again, very disappointed about his 99 at the weekend. And he actually sent me some messages today. He actually did send me some messages.
Yeah,
So
he woke up, so it's good.
bridges appear to be on the way to being mended, which is good. Max, England's day, talk us through the key points. Because this was like going back to Edgbaston. Yesterday was like normal Test cricket. Today was like wild swings all over the place.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, yesterday England found themselves quite considerably behind the 8 ball, and only just with a glimmer of hope thanks to the 2 late wickets from Joe Root. So today's plan was quite simple. Step 1, bowl the Aussies out before lunch. Tick, big tick. Step 2, get to lunch without losing any wickets. Tick, big tick. Step 3, score loads of runs. I mean, quite a simple one. And they pretty much did that one as well. It's 3 ticks from me for England's day, but boy, was there a whole lot more to it than that. Steve Smith obviously got to his century. Very impressive from him before England wrapped up the tail pretty quickly. Although there was a little bit of effort from Pat Cummins to get things going, but I think getting 416 all out, given what was it 339 for 5 last
Something
night,
like that. Yeah. It wasn't a great situation for England.
Yeah, the last 5 wickets for 80 odd runs. I mean, that's pretty good going. I think that's very much in the positive end of the spectrum, and then it was all about what England could do with the bat. I mean, basically the ball didn't really do too much. The pitch flattened out, and as I speculated yesterday for one of the routes for England to get back into the match, hopefully Lords becomes easier to bat on, and that's how it proved. And England made hay while the sun shined, and then it went a bit weird, didn't it?
It went very weird.
It's like when I've been basically the last couple of hours I've been having the tones of TMS drummed into my ears, telling me how completely insane England were and how it was just stupid, and all the rest of it. So I would like you to tell me whether you agree with them before I give my thoughts from a sort of like, I guess, not having witnessed the pure insanity but also followed it.
Well, let's do this early. Let's do this early in the show because it for sure will be the talking point. I didn't think it was a major strategic blunder by England, and I think there is an element of old man shouts at cloud about the way that some people have been going on about how England have played and where the game stands. Within that, you have to have an acknowledgement that when England are at 180 for 1, they are winning the Test match. They have gone they've gone from about a 10% chance of winning, I think, at the end of yesterday's play, according to the markets, which we sometimes use as a barometer. So I think at that point about a 55-60%.
Really?
An unreal swing. And but it looked like there was no way you could get them out. Like Duckett, I didn't even think I was doing Greta Cricket, and I was saying on air, I didn't even think he'd played that well. He was on 90, chanceless 90, and it had taken him 110 balls to get there. Like it was, basically incredible stuff and an incredible change around. And then they try the shorter ball plan, Australia, and they do it in a really Australian way, if that makes sense. Like it's 4 or 5 boundary fielders behind square. So you've got 2 deep on the leg side, which is the most you can have. Then also a deep square leg, and mainly somebody catching, not really catching, but in the ring on the leg side too. And then a deep third and a deep point and a regular point. That it was taking sort of bodyline, bouncer theory, Neil Wagner, England and Ben Stokes. And dialing it up to 10, and obviously
distilling it into its purest form.
And Australia have got 4 guys who are capable of carrying this out as well. Like Cameron Green didn't bowl that well, but if you're going to ask anybody in the world to bang it in short, a guy who's 6'7" and can bowl 85 to 90 miles an hour, ideal, and he's their 4th best bowler at doing this. Like it was real punch you in the face kind of stuff from Australia. And what I would ask of the people who think that it was bad cricket from England to sort of get out in this scenario is what did you actually want them to do? Australia were bowling, and this is no joke, 9 out of 10 balls halfway down. Like 9 out of 10 balls. There was not.
I can tell you exactly what they were asking England to do.
they were saying, "Go on, take it on then," and England did. And what I'm getting at here is what are you actually saying to England here? Because once the ball is banged in halfway down, you're either playing to score runs or you're playing to not get out. Like it narrows down to those 2 things. It's not to quite a significant extent when the ball is banged in halfway down. You're relying on the pitch kind of being true and the pace being even for you to be able to score runs. And if you're trying to get out of the way of it, you're just trying to get out of the way of it. And I think you have to kind of pick your poison. England have obviously decided, as they clearly were going to, that they had to take the ball on and that they wanted to keep the scoreboard moving, and they were not happy to score 5 off 8 overs and just shoulder arms and see what happened. They thought, well, with this field, if we hit the ball on the floor, it's a single. And it was. On the other hand, if you get one that doesn't come on as well as you think, you could sky a catch like Pope. If you get one that comes on maybe a little bit quicker than you thought, you can sky a catch like Duckett. And you can just play a bad shot like Root. My take on it was that the batters mainly made the right decision and that taking the ball on and trying to score was the way through that passage of play. And that they kind of didn't get the rub of the green. They were a little bit unlucky with a couple of the dismissals. And I think if you zoom out and you look at someone like Joe Root, who moved into the top 10 Test run scorers of all time, and you look at how he scored his runs, there's probably more than 1,000 of them scored with the pull shot, and there's probably fairly few dismissals in there. It's a high percentage shot for a top order batter to take on a pull shot, especially if you know it's coming. It's ugly. It was a really ugly passage of play. Aesthetically speaking, if all Test teams start doing this, we'll see a rule change in a year. It was horrendous. Like it's ball after ball. There's no anticipation. There's no setup. The field's where it is. The bowler can only deliver one type of ball. The batter can only play one type of shot. The batter can only be out one type of way. It's just sort of a waiting game to see whether the batting team will score enough singles that the bowlers go to something else, or whether they'll chip a catch. In this case, they chipped a few catches, and it changed the game. The final thing I would say on this is that I think Australia, all of that I've said there about it being kind of boring and whatever, completely legitimate tactic, and it was really well executed against a team where they knew that they would get taken on. And we have seen this England team take it on and hit bowlers for 6 after 6 after 6.
Yeah.
Like it's not. This is one side of the coin. Bairstow smacking Matt Henry into the crowd is the other side.
I mean that was like nothing I've ever
seen. New
seen.
Zealand, what happened in Pakistan, even what happened to South Africa at spells last season. Teams have tried the bouncer theory, and mainly what has happened is that England have hit loads of sixes. On this occasion, Australia nailed it for 10 overs until all their bowlers got tired and it got a little bit easier. That's my quite long take on it, and hopefully quite nuanced, because I think there is some nuance in there. But I think if you're an England fan and you're raging about that, you've got to look at the bigger picture and say that is one of the most incredible comebacks, I think, anyway. And I think like the market would say that you'll see in a day's cricket, like everything that could have gone right for you basically did.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is pretty much the same. I would add a few things, but I think you've covered it very nicely indeed. But I think one of the things that is annoying me
I was expecting
about
you to
it,
be raging, to be honest, Max. Like this is
it
feels like one of those things where
literally
you'd be raging.
Literally everyone is going on about how this is like. I'm being told that what England did was insane and I should be angry, but I've not heard a single person even try to look at it from the point of view of how England are playing cricket at the moment. I've heard Michael Vaughan say something like, there's entertainment and there's stupidity, and the start was entertainment, but this was just sheer stupidity. But like when you have to like actually take a step back and distill it down, you've got, they're making it sound like what's happened is England are walking through the woods. Someone's just come out and put a bear trap in front of them in England. They've gone, I'm just going to tread in that. But I mean, realistically, Australia could be like, okay, go on, right, fine. Let's see what you're going to do. We reckon you're going to take it on. And like you said, like at Trent Bridge, Johnny Bairstow was destroying it. Lords also, I mean, Lords is a small ground. Like, as test grounds go, Lords isn't a massive ground, so they've got that on their side. They obviously back themselves to hit runs, but like you said, they've got the option. England are always going to take the positive approach. And when you look at sort of the state of the game, where it was 180 odd for one, Nathan Lyon had just gone off. It was literally Australia's last tactic. If England at this point go positive, and then in the next like 8 overs, well, it wouldn't be 8 overs, it would be like 5 or 6 overs, Australia trying this tactic, then milk them, or even more, like plunder them for runs. I mean, what does that do to the state of the game? That's incredible, and it's a really it's a risk. It's much more risk perhaps than they had to take on, but the potential benefits from it were huge. And like you say, I mean, they've gone for the aggressive attacking approach, and like when I just want people to sort of actually look at it and think about what the logic was behind what England were trying to do. Sure, it didn't really work in the end, but that's fine. No, they're basically judging it on what's happened. They're not judging it on what England were trying to do, any logic behind it, any understanding of the approach. It's just gone, well, this isn't Test cricket. I don't like it. England was stupid. Thank God Ben Stokes came in and started ducking.
That kind of is my. I listened to a little bit of TMS. I was doing guerrilla cricket, and then on the way home, I was listening to a little bit of that, and Jim Maxwell in particular just couldn't believe what England did. And it was England don't have 278 runs if they don't take these risks in other periods of the game. The reason Australia are even doing that is because England aren't settling for 180 for 2 at the end of the day, which is sort of would have been conventional wisdom, and would have had England an extra 100 runs behind. And would have been probably a best case scenario playing traditional Test cricket if you try and score 3 runs and over. So it comes down to it again, whether you think these tactics are making England or are putting England in positions that they wouldn't be in if they were playing conventional Test cricket? And I think the answer is unequivocally yes. They have done it again. I mean, how many more times do you want to see England go out to bat and be miles behind the game and then smack it around for 70 overs or whatever it is, and then they're suddenly favourites to win the Test, or go out on day one and blast 400. 3 people are out playing reverse sweeps, but they've got 400 runs, and how many more times do they have to get loads of runs in a day, and lose a couple of ugly wickets along the way because of the way they're playing before people are like, well, they are actually scoring a shit ton of runs.
And England ended the day 138 behind with 6 wickets in hand. I mean, that's an incredible position to be in
as well. It's pretty good cricket by Australia to be hanging in this match. Once again, they're 108. They're playing against a team that are 180 for 1, batting in the sun on a flat deck with 2 guys. One looks like nailed on Centurion, the other one on 40. Apparently he's got a bad shoulder, but it doesn't really look like it. And within 15 overs, both of them are out, and it's the number 6, the dashing number 6, the king of Bazball, who's grinding it out to the end of the day to try and keep his team sort of to try and
get them ready for tomorrow.
England,
yeah,
they're trying to get through to the end of the day by the end of the match. By the end of the day rather. It's a lot of credit has to go to Australia, and again, Cummins I think gets it pretty spot on. Now, if England had their time again, I think they probably would do some things differently. I think there are some technique things about the way they played. If you look at how Pope is out basically turning around and trying to hit Cam Green
over his head.
The pavilion.
It's that's the longest bit of the ground.
it's an outrageous shot, and if he pulls it off, which he has done, we have seen him do this multiple times. There's a shot he can play, then it looks great. On the other hand, you've just seen Lyon walk off the pitch, and we'll probably have to cover this in part 2 because there are big implications there. You've just seen Lyon walk off the pitch. Cameron Green is spraying it. Like the slope is getting to him. He's had to remark his run up. He's bowling 2 no balls and over. Maybe you just think, all I'm going to do is get inside the line and tap it. And the only way I can be out in that scenario is if I get a real feather on it and I'm caught by the wicketkeeper. And he tries to hit a 6 and he's caught. Maybe you reconsider that. Maybe if you're Ben Duckett, his technique for hitting short balls is kind of to hit it hard into the ground. His technique in general seems to be hit it hard into the ground. and that, if you're trying to hit the ball hard, that means you if you top edge it, it will fly, and that is how he's out. I wonder with that ball, if he had his time again,
a bit more controlled,
would he have just rolled his wrists on it and just flicked it around the corner? And if you top edge it, it goes sort of 45 yards to the boundary, 50 yards to the boundary, and it's caught on the bounce rather than carrying all the way. They're quite small points, really. They're technique points. They're not strategy points. They're players with methodologies that kind of get them in trouble. And Root, if you're telling Root to put away the pull shot, you're a fucking idiot. To be honest. How many?
I mean, you got a flat deck. It's fairly slow, and you've got the best batter in the world, and you'd be like, don't score runs.
And he almost gets away with it as well. I mean, it's one of those catches. It's out. It's clearly out, but it almost isn't out.
Yeah.
Like Steve
was also out off a no ball as well, so that's sort of added to it as well, hasn't it? Everyone sort of looked at that and been like, well, that's actually 4 wickets. And then Harry Brook was dropped by Labuschagne as well, so that's actually 5 wickets.
I thought the Brook one would have been that wasn't even really part of the plan. I don't think. I think that was just a bad ball, and Harry Brooks was like, that's a bad ball, and smacked it.
Yeah.
And Labuschagne's, I think, been like, that's a bad ball. I'm not going to bother getting ready to catch this. Then it's come at him, and he doesn't even get a hand on it. So we've spent 15 minutes talking about some short balls there. Hopefully, it was entertaining. It was
the main story of the afternoon, wasn't it?
Well, it's going to end up being the main story of the day. What should be the bloody main story of the day, though, is that England started as 10-1 outsiders or 9-1 outsiders. I can never really work out how percentages translate into odds. Is it 9-1 if you're a 10% chance?
I think with the decimal odds of 10, then it's 9-1.
Yeah, but they had a 10% chance of winning the match, or maybe a bit more because they took those last 2 wickets. 15% say. And if you look now, they're 50% chance. They're the team that are most likely to win the match. Will they win the match? I'm not saying that they will win the match. There's a long way to go. They're one good spell from Australia. from that from that being flipped round. But this was a team that were looking down the barrel of 500 this morning, and are now thinking we can get a lead.
They're batting a first innings lead. Yeah, it's insane.
Or worst case scenario, we're going to have a decent chance at a chase. Which is bonkers. Like that is pretty bonkers. Plus Lyon limps off. So Max, I think we probably need to take a break, and then I've talked a lot as well. So is there any points you'd like to talk about?
No, I mean I think you summed up a lot of what I said, and I added in the extra bits that I wanted to add on. So happy to call it there, and let's come back in a bit and go on to Nathan.
Cool. We will quickly plug our Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod to support the show, keep us going. We're having record audiences. We were big time in the IPL. We were pretty big there. It's gone to another level for the Ashes.
We have Bazball to thank. It's the entertainment saving Test cricket.
Like it is about Bazball to save Test cricket, and by extension save the cricket podcast. So we were thriving. By extension, made the cricket podcast even stronger than it was, and it was previously very, very strong.
Drivers of growth.
But we always need support, so do head over to Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod for bonus content and access to a Discord, and just to keep us going. Sign up for a month. It's a £5 a month. Sub us a £5 for July. Ashes is over. Go back to the football. We don't give a shit. Let's make Max and Jack, and for some reason Ross fucking shows up. And for some reason Ross make this worthwhile. We'll be back in a few seconds.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. We're going to start, and I think this is a good one. We've got to talk about Lyon and the impact that's going to have on the game. But I think a little bit more on England's bowling, particularly with respect to how they ended the day yesterday and what they did this morning. Well, the times they bowled in this match. I don't know if I really need to preface it that way. We've had a comment from a lot of Lions.
So we are on Lyon then?
Yeah, well, kind of. Nice one, Max. Would hope how this day went will make some famous former players reassess their views on England's disgraceful bowling yesterday, but somehow doubt it. I think there's a very obvious barb at Kevin. He hasn't got a middle name, like a middle thing, has he?
Kevin Dalai Lama Peterson.
Yeah, Kevin Peterson, Kevin KP Peterson, Kevin Fig Jam Peterson. He was on his high horse yesterday about how England bowled. Is there something to say that maybe they didn't do such a bad job, and that particularly how they wrapped up this innings, maybe Australia's score of 400 is closer to par than we gave it credit yesterday when it looked a little bit bleak for England?
Yeah, I mean, obviously England had the benefit of overhead conditions, and the ball was doing a bit more yesterday, and I think perhaps a little bit of extra bounce maybe helped out this morning as well. But yeah, you saw the difficulty that Australia's bowlers had, and it's the same pitch. So that's the same pitch that England's bowlers were trying to get something out of. But there are a couple of things that I picked up on this morning on sort of the stats that Andy Zaltzman were putting out, which pretty much sum up what we were saying yesterday about how England bowled, and we thought that they actually weren't that bad. There was, I think, of the 54 tests in England, which they've got the data for, England bowled the 6th highest number of balls that were hitting the stumps. So, I mean, generally, people have a go at England for not bowling at the stumps enough to take wickets. That was the accusation that Australia levelled at India on the first day of the World Test Championship. I think it was Steve Smith that they interviewed after, and he was like, "Were India unlucky today?" And he just said, "No, they just didn't bowl at the stumps enough." And you obviously yesterday likened that day's played quite a lot to the World Test Championship for those sorts of reasons. But obviously the data suggests that England actually did bowl at the stumps quite a lot. And the other thing that they mentioned was that England hit a good length and a good line, a reasonable amount of time. It wasn't like they were off their lines and lengths more than other tests. It was in like the top 25% or something of their tests in England where they've hit a good line line of length. So I think that just highlights that, yeah, England, they bowled fine yesterday. They were a little bit unlucky at the start, and then as things got easier, we saw today how easy it was to bat when things were easy. And obviously, they ran into the maestro that is Stephen Smith. So you'd like to think that maybe looking back, they'd review their thoughts. But again, it's just a case of, I mean, one way of putting it was what you said earlier, old man shouts at cloud. But also, it's the classic thing of just like rewriting what happened based on the outcome. It's like it's not quite hindsight so much as just rewriting the narrative because it didn't go so well, but not sort of, maybe just thinking, actually taking a step back and maybe thinking, actually be a bit more critical or less critical about what you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it. I think my overwhelming feeling, sort of again, having seen a bit more of this pitch, and they say let's see both who's batting it, is that we're watching two pretty high-class teams going at it, and punches are going to be swung, and momentum is going to change, and we've kind of seen that on all 7 days. I mean, if you look across the whole series so far, Australia probably deserve to be 1-0 up based on how well they batted yesterday. I mean, obviously that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't apply to the whole test, and how well they played on day 5 of the first test. But England have won days as well. Like it's been super competitive. If you wanted to score days, it probably ends up being 4-3 to Australia or something like that, and hence
yeah.
1-0
It's like, I mean, I know
but
you don't really like tennis, Jack, but you can have a game of tennis where you lose in straight sets, but it's 7-6, 7-6, or you can lose 6-love, 6-love, and this is much more of a 7-6, 7-6 scenario.
yeah, it is for sure. Big problem potentially for Australia, and we do need to get to this. Nathan Lyon, he comes running in to try and take a catch off Duckett. He's not going to quite get there. So the injury doesn't affect that, but he pulls up lame, then reaches for his calf, immediately leaves the field limping, supported by one of the Aussie trainers. And Australia cricket release statements have to go for a scan, and they're not really sure how he's doing. Now, Max, you're not a doctor, but can you give us any insight into this injury and what the repercussions are for the Ashes?
Well, I think you clearly see he's got a myofascial tear to the blood. No, it doesn't look great, does it? He was being helped off and helped around the field by the physio. So you'd suggest that it's not gonna fix itself anytime soon. I don't think we'll be seeing him tomorrow. I'd be surprised if we see him for the rest of the test. England will very much be hoping they don't have to see him for the rest of the test. But we'll just have to wait and see what the scan says, won't we? Could be if it's an actual proper tear to the muscle, then it's it's like what 4 weeks plus, and that's bye Ashes for Nathan Lyon, which would be a real shame given how well he's bowled and just how England have played him as well. Like, apparently all he needs to do is turn up and someone's just going to run down the wicket in the opposite direction of the ball and give him a free stumping. Nice one, Zach. But it's a shame because you want to obviously see both sides and their best players going at it, especially given how well it's started as a series. So I think obviously we hope that he can turn it around and get back into it and continue his run of consecutive tests. Obviously, so it's a bit of a shame that he pulled up in his 100th consecutive test, isn't it?
Yeah,
Alistair Cook's not so upset about the fact, but shame for him. But yeah, I mean, what I would say, it obviously affects them in this test and their options. They use Travis Head a bit. He's serviceable, probably not quite Joe Root standard of part-time bowler, but he can get through a few overs if they need to. But beyond that, obviously there's Todd Murphy in the squad, who looked pretty good when he went to India, so it'll be a potential opportunity for him and to see what he can do. So there's potential positives for him and for Australia to get another look at him in obviously slightly less favourable conditions, because made his debut in India, didn't he? So a bit of help. It'll be a bit less help in England, but he looked a good player. So it's not like it's gonna be a well. It could end up not being a total disaster, I guess. But obviously, losing someone of the caliber of Nathan Lyon is hardly optimal, and really does enhance England's chances of winning this particular test. So, but yeah, we'll
Oh, I
just have
think
to
absolutely.
have to wait
I
and see.
think
Won't we?
particularly if England can get to parity in this innings
Yeah.
and then bowl average, and Australia get 300. Sans Lyon. And remember what Australia did in the second innings of the first test. It was Cummins. There was the Cummins and Lyon show in England's
Yeah.
second dig. That puts a lot of pressure on Hazelwood and Stark and Cameron Green to bowl well. And frankly, Stark and Green.
I mean, Stark went around the
haven't.
park today.
Yeah, and Green was a kind of a liability. I don't even know how fit Green is. I mean, like he barely bowled in the first test. A lot during the IPL there were sort of rumblings that he might not be completely fit to bowl loads. I think it's going to be a problem for Australia, that, and it's one area where they're way ahead of England. In English conditions, they have a better spinner. The pace, the seam bowling attacks probably about the same. Might be a little bit better for Australia. Speaking again purely in English conditions, and then the batting seems to be lining up pretty well so far. Like it's you'd say again, Australia the better batting unit in general in Test matches, but with England calling the shots on the pitches, that advantage is somewhat negated. Lyon v Root, or Lyon v Moeen Ali, or Lyon v Rayan Ahmed, or Lyon v
Liam Dawson, Will Jacks.
Yeah, it's
name anyone you like.
Yeah, it's a huge gulf in quality, and it really gives Australia, when they're bowling, it gives them the chance to dictate play and rotate their bowlers and constantly put England under pressure and ask different questions. And without him, even if they are able to bring in Todd Murphy, I think that's it could be a huge momentum changer. I don't really mean the word momentum there. I mean like odds shifter. Like I think he's one of Australia's best players, and if he is available,
Would you put it on potentially on the same level as Glenn McGrath treading on a ball in a warm up?
Because I think Glenn McGrath is one of the best bowlers of all time, and
Right.
I don't think Lyon is quite at that level. He's a very, very good bowler, and I think in that particular series, well, ever, if you lose one of the best bowlers of all time, and you have to replace him with your fourth or fifth best option, seam bowling option, that's a nightmare. And then I think in that series as well, Jason Gillespie didn't bowl very well. It was kind of near the end of his career, so they had to fight. There was like Kasparovic and Sean Tate in one of the tests, and that's a big difference from prime Gillespie and Glenn McGrath any time. I think Australia will be able to manage Nathan Lyon being out and still be very competitive. I don't think he's the pure game winner, the cheat code, to use a phrase that I don't really like, that McGrath was. But it's big. It's certainly.
I guess with the spinner as well, from a pure numbers point of view, if you lose your spinner, then you pick your second best spinner. If you lose your best seamer, you have to pick your fifth best seamer. The difference can be.
Look at what India had to do.
Yes,
in the
exactly.
World Test Championship final. Look at there's overs bowled by people there that really, they're fringe players for West Indies.
Well, let's not put it that far.
I mean, they're really not brilliant cricketers.
They'd beat Scotland.
Well, they are good cricketers, but they're. No, I mean the Test team, like.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah, like Kemar Roach, Shannon Gabriel, and Jaden Seals are all better. Maybe Shardul Thakur sneaks in as your fourth seamer there, or Umesh Yadav. But you get the point. I think we've made the point without having to go down a bit of a tangent there. Max, I believe that we are. I asked the question very late on Twitter because I was out, so I don't think we. Well, I don't think we got one. Somebody has made the point that England got out hooking loads, and it's like, well, yeah, that is true. And would they have maybe played differently? Possibly, but also I wouldn't overanalyze it for all the reasons that we talked about. I think it fits with the game plan, doesn't it, to take on the short ball, and it has worked well in the past. Australia, maybe the next time they'll say Australia's seam bowling is substantially better than the short pitch bowling that we faced against New Zealand and India and South Africa and Pakistan.
Yeah,
so
and that would probably be fair as well.
We are, yeah. We're going to try to do something a little bit different. Maybe we will just try and block out a few overs or I don't know, whatever. Put the hook away. I don't really know what the option is, but do something different. But I don't know if they will either. I don't necessarily think that they were wrong. Where does this test go from here is the final question. It is poised. It is very delicately poised. Australia, if you want I always think the Google win probability thing is much better than the
TV.
It's miles better than WinViz. Like it's not even a contest between the two. Australia 35, draw 18, England 47 is where they have things. Would you agree? Would you disagree? What's going to happen next?
I think it's in the ballpark. I think probably, like I said, with England 138 behind with 6 wickets in hand, you've got to look at that position and think that's a great place to be in. And England are in a really good shout of getting a first innings lead. And with Lyon out of the picture, which I assume is factored into the Google numbers if they do take the betting markets into account, which will obviously have the human brain power to know that Nathan Lyon's probably not going to bowl in the 4th innings, whereas I assume WinViz doesn't. Then I think England probably would be favourites. And against all odds, somehow England are probably the team that you'd rather be at this point. But like you say, they are still a bit behind, and one spurt from the Aussie bowlers in the morning could completely send things tumbling. I think that's the thing. Like overall, the position is probably favouring England, but if one thing happens, England could lose it in half an hour. Australia aren't going to lose this game in half an hour. England could lose it in half an hour in the morning, so it's much more volatile for them. But on the face of it, they're in a great position. If they can get a lead, then it's going to be a really, really exciting 3 days, hopefully.
I think that's basically right. I think the draw's more in the game than people. I mean, what did I say? It was 20% basically, so it's in the game. I think
less likely with England batting 4th.
I think it is really unlikely that England declare this time. I just don't see that happening. I think there is.
I can't see them getting to a position where they would want to.
Well, yeah. I mean, like within. If they were 150 ahead, maybe they do declare.
Yeah,
but I don't think.
But that's not happening.
So that means they'll bat on for a bit, and Australia don't score that quickly. So
they did go over 4 and over in their first innings.
It could take them a long time to get to a score where they'd be comfortable calling it a day. And then if they are 420 ahead, say, and they declare right at the end of the day on day 4, these are possibilities. Maybe England actually do bat it out. I don't know. Maybe that's where Bazball ends. They'd certainly go for it. They'd start going for it, but they may eventually stop. We have a handful of questions that we are going to get to from the YouTube, and they're coming up now. How many minus points will these teams be on for slow over rates? Well, it'll be -2 for both of them again, I think there.
Right, so -4.
Which teams will we be supporting for Major League Cricket? I'm going to go Seattle Orcas.
Okay.
Are you going to go Texas Super Kings? You can go Orcas as well. Or
I suppose you could go Texas Super Kings. Yeah, the Super King franchise. I was thinking San Francisco Unicorns. A, because I went to San Francisco not that long ago, and B, Ross did interview Liam Plunkett the other day. But maybe I should leave Ross to have San Fran. So why not? Let's go against everything I stand for and go for a nice hard Republican state of Texas Super Kings.
Cool. And then Pradwell says, will the next test see all-out seam attacks for both teams? I don't think so. I think Australia will pick Murphy if Lyon isn't available. And I think that Moeen is likely to come back for England. But you never know. You never really know. Right, Max, we're done. Goodbye.